They mocked my little meal prep business. Now I make their annual salary in a month. They laughed when I quit my job to sell chicken and rice in plastic containers. Now they avoid eye contact when I mention revenue. They always say the worst kind of laughter is the kind that comes from people you love. I disagree. The worst kind is the laughter that follows you home, crawls into bed with you at night, and whispers, "What if they're right?" I still remember the day I told them, my parents, my sister, my closest friends. I thought I was announcing something bold and brave. They thought I was delivering a punchline. I stood there in my parents' kitchen, surrounded by the people who were supposed to be my cheerleaders, and declared, "I'm starting a ready-made meal business." At first, silence. Then my dad blinked, confused. "Like, for dogs?" My mom's lips twitched. "Oh, honey," she said, the way people do when someone announces they're becoming a mime or starting a podcast no one asked for. "No," I said, already regretting everything. "For people. Healthy food. Prepped. Packaged. Delivered. Subscription-based." My sister barked out a laugh. "You're serious?" She looked at me like I just told her I was joining a cult. "Who's gonna eat your food? You burn toast." And then Mark, my oldest friend, my so-called brother from another mother, slapped the table like he was in a sitcom. "Meal prep? Bro, I didn't even know you could cook. I thought your idea of dinner was a protein bar and regret." I laughed with them. That's the worst part. I laughed like it was a joke, too, because it hurt less than standing there in silence while the air filled with disbelief and secondhand embarrassment. They didn't see what I saw. Late nights researching macros and food safety regulations, spreadsheets full of cost per serving breakdowns, branding ideas I'd sketched out between meetings at a job I hated more with every passing day. They didn't see the inbox full of messages from people who wanted this. People like me, tired, busy, desperate for a break from takeout and guilt. But my family didn't care about the market. They cared about comfort, predictability. The idea that someone would throw away a stable job with a 401k for an apron and a bunch of plastic containers? That was lunacy. Or worse, arrogance. "Don't you think you're being impulsive?" my mom asked, gently, as if I were on the verge of shaving my head. I smiled. "No, I think I'm finally being honest." What followed was a slow descent into entrepreneurial hell. I used my severance to buy ingredients, a commercial-grade food processor from a guy on Craigslist with questionable hygiene, and enough Tupperware to choke a landfill. My apartment turned into a culinary assembly line: rice steamers, vacuum sealers, insulated delivery bags. I cooked until my hands blistered, labeled meals until my vision blurred. The first week, I made 7 orders. 2 were from ex-coworkers. 1 was from my neighbor who thought I was selling weed and was trying to support local business, just in case. I delivered the meals myself. By hand. On foot. In the rain. I had no marketing budget. Just Instagram, TikTok, and a smile that I faked so hard it should have won an Oscar. I filmed cooking videos, taste tests, packing sessions, anything that made me look more legitimate than I felt. Most of them got 30 views. On a good day, 40. I didn't sleep. I didn't go out. My friends stopped inviting me, assuming I was too busy failing to attend. Mark sent me a meme once. A guy sitting alone in a restaurant with the caption, "My friend waiting for his first meal prep order to come in." Ha, ha, ha. Then something shifted. One night I posted a video, just a simple shot of me plating one of my meals, slow motion drizzle of sauce, lo-fi music, a caption that read, "Because healthy shouldn't mean boring." It hit the algorithm like a spark in a gas leak. In 24 hours, 60,000 views. By the weekend, 400,000. Comments flooded in. "Do you deliver to Houston? I need this in my life. How do I subscribe?" Then came the DM. A verified wellness influencer with 480k followers. She asked for a sample box. I nearly dropped my phone. I cooked her best meals yet, measured to perfection, packed like luxury goods. She posted an unboxing. Called it the most thoughtful, delicious, actual healthy food I've ever had. My follower count tripled. Orders came in faster than I could fulfill them. 3 days later, I got an email from a corporate wellness coordinator. One of those slick startup offices with kombucha on tap and nap pots. They wanted lunch catered. Daily. 60 meals per day. I said yes before I even had a plan. I didn't tell my family. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I wanted the silence to last a little longer, to let their laughter echo around the empty space where their faith should have been. Because something in me had changed. I wasn't chasing their approval anymore. I was chasing invoices, bulk orders, new packaging vendors. And, for the first time in my life, I wasn't just dreaming. I was doing. And the best part? The joke wasn't on me anymore. The irony was almost poetic. The same people who once laughed now couldn't stop asking how I did it. Of course, they didn't phrase it like that. It was always couched in curiosity, in half-hearted compliments, in the language of people trying to swallow pride without choking on it. "Wow, you're really doing something with this little food thing, huh?" my dad said one Sunday, poking around my website like it might bite him. Didn't realize you could charge that much for broccoli. I didn't bother explaining that it wasn't just broccoli. It was slow-roasted garlic-seasoned broccoli over turmeric quinoa with chili-glazed tofu bites, developed, tested, photographed, and packaged with more care than any of his office reports from the last 30 years. My mom started sending me Pinterest articles. You should do a keto line, she offered, like I hadn't already tested 3 and scrapped them for being unprofitable. I read women in their 40s are all about that now. Mark, my former biggest heckler, became oddly supportive once I went viral. He texted things like, always knew you had it in you, bro, and next stop, Shark Tank, with crying laugh emojis, as if he could laugh away the fact that just months ago he told me I'd be back begging for my desk job. I didn't respond. Not right away. Because underneath the orders, the glowing reviews, the 5-figure months, I was still bitter. And part of me wanted to stay that way. Bitterness, as it turns out, is a hell of a motivator. It kept me awake during 4 a.m. batch preps. It pushed me to buy my first industrial fridge instead of hiring help. It made me reread every condescending text, every sarcastic comment, every side-eye glance from those dinners at my parents' house where I was the one without a real plan. Now, they wanted to pretend like they never said those things. Selective amnesia, how convenient. Even my sister, who once laughed so hard she spilled wine on my business plan, started tagging her friends in my Instagram posts. My brother's business, she wrote, like she'd always been my biggest fan. I remember staring at the screen, jaw clenched. Not from anger, well, not just anger. From restraint. Because what I wanted to write back was, you mocked me. To my face. Repeatedly. And now you want it on the photo op? But I didn't write that. Instead, I posted a news story, a behind-the-scenes clip of 200 meals being loaded into my delivery van, captioned, built from scratch. No shortcuts. No cheerleaders. Just hunger. Passive-aggressive? Maybe. But damn, it felt good. Orders poured in faster than I could prep. I hired a driver. Then a second. Then a prep assistant named Danny who cut vegetables like she was settling a score. We worked out of a shared kitchen space until we maxed it out. Then I signed a lease on my own facility, clean, professional, mine. The day I saw my business name on that door, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I just stood there, remembering the look on Mark's face when I told him this was what I wanted to build. He said, "You really think people want to eat your food?" I wished I had a picture of that look now, frame it, hang it in my office like a diploma. Then came the numbers. Real numbers. The kind that hit different when you grew up watching your parents argue about grocery budgets. 1 month, just one, I cleared what my parents make combined in a full year. Not revenue. Profit. I didn't throw it in their faces. I didn't need to. Because they knew. At the next family dinner, my dad asked if I could help him optimize his retirement investments. My mom wanted me to look over a baking project she was thinking of turning into a side hustle. My sister asked if I could do branded meal kits for her gym clients, you know, something cute with our logo on it. It was surreal. Like watching actors play different versions of people you once knew. Versions that respected you. But I hadn't forgotten the script. Mark eventually called me. Not a text. Not a DM. A full phone call. "Hey man," he started, voice a little too casual. "Saw your stuff's blowing up. Crazy, right?" I let him talk. He told me how work was boring. How he always knew I'd do something cool. How we should collab sometime. Maybe he could run social media for me. Maybe he could help with scaling. Maybe he could bring in clients. I almost laughed. The same guy who once joked I'd be bankrupt in a month now wanted equity in my success story. As if he could retroactively recast himself as the best friend who believed. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I told him I'd think about it. But what I really thought was this. Some people only clap once the lights come on. They wait until the risk is gone, the odds are even, and the outcome is safe. Then they rush the stage, hoping no one remembers they never bought a ticket. Well, I remembered. Every laugh. Every doubt. Every offhand comment about how food isn't a real business. They gave me doubt. I gave myself everything else. There's a strange kind of silence that comes with success. Not peace. Don't mistake it for that. But a brittle quiet where the people who once mocked you don't know what to say anymore. I'd hear it at family dinners. Between bites and sips, they'd all go very quiet when the subject of my business came up. Like success was a bad smell they didn't want to inhale too deeply. "Oh, you're still doing those meals?" my aunt asked once, as if it was a phase I should have outgrown, like skateboarding or self-respect. I smiled. Still delivering lunch to 300 people a week. Nothing major. There was a clink of silverware. Someone cleared their throat. My sister changed the subject. Funny thing is, the more I grew, the smaller they acted. My kitchen expanded into a full-blown facility. Walk-in fridges. Commercial-grade ovens. A tiny army of employees in aprons and hairnets, all looking to me for direction. Me, the guy who was once told he was too sensitive for the service industry. We got uniforms. Branded labels. I started sourcing compostable packaging and local ingredients. I built something real, not just profitable, but purposeful. And that's when the congratulations started rolling in from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old classmates who never spoke to me in school. Bro, always knew you were going to do something dope. Random LinkedIn connections. Saw your feature in that startup blog. So inspiring. Even Mark, persistent Mark, left a voicemail that sounded like a TED Talk blooper reel. Man, I've been thinking a lot. About growth. About mindset. About partnerships. Let's circle back soon. Circle back. Like we were colleagues, not the punchline and the puncher. But the real twist? My parents. They never apologized, not directly. That's not how they operate. We don't do vulnerability in our family. We do passive-aggressive casseroles and unsolicited career advice. But one evening, I got home to find a package on my doorstep. No return label. Inside, a custom apron with my logo stitched on it. High quality. Expensive. I recognized the fabric immediately, my mom's favorite brand. She used to buy their tablecloths for every holiday. Tucked inside was a card. No message. Just one word in my dad's handwriting. Proud. And I didn't know how to feel about that. Because where was this pride when I needed it? When I was eating 2-day-old rice and crying over broken sauce seals and wondering if I'd thrown away my future for a fantasy. Was this pride real? Or just convenient now that I was successful? I started thinking about success differently after that. Success, I realized, doesn't fix broken relationships. It just changes the lighting. Makes the cracks clearer. Sharper. And sometimes, it draws out people who only want to bask in the glow without acknowledging they once tried to snuff out the spark. Like my cousin Ryan. He slid into my DMs out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken in years. Last time I saw him, he was telling everyone at a barbecue that I was trying to be the next Gordon Ramsay with zero talent. No? Hey man, any chance you'd be open to an investment? I've got a bit saved up. Want to diversify my portfolio, you know? I nearly dropped my phone. This guy once said I'd be selling expired hummus out of a Prius. Now he wanted to invest? I told him the only thing he could invest in was a sincere apology and a time machine. But I wasn't entirely bitter. Not anymore. Because I had something they didn't. Proof. I had client testimonials that brought me to tears. A cancer survivor who said my meals helped her regain strength without feeling like food was punishment. A single mom who told me I'd saved her 2 hours every evening and her sanity. A gym trainer who said his clients finally understood the phrase clean eating wasn't code for cardboard. Every meal that left my kitchen was a silent, screw you, to every eye roll and dismissive laugh I'd ever endured. Every recurring subscription was another voice whispering, you were right to believe in this. I didn't need their permission anymore. I didn't crave their approval. But I did something unexpected anyway. I invited them all to a tasting. A full spread. Branded table carts. Course pairings. Thoughtful plating. The works. I told them it was just a little showcase for friends and family. What I didn't tell them was that it was also my quiet little reckoning. They showed up dressed nice, like they were going to a soft opening of a trendy bistro. My mom wore heels. My dad shaved. They sat. They ate. They murmured. They MMM'd. My sister took pictures for Instagram like she'd been here since day one. After dessert, I stood up. I didn't make a speech. I just said, thanks for coming. Some of you doubted this. That's okay. I remember. I just wanted you to see what it looks like when you stop waiting for validation and build anyway. Silence. Then applause. Small. Hesitant. But real. For a second, I wanted to bask in it. Then I remembered something. I wasn't building this for them. I was building it for the version of me who once sat in a tiny kitchen, packaging hope into plastic containers while people he loved chuckled behind his back. And he would have been proud, too. Growth doesn't feel like victory. It feels like drowning slower than everyone else. For a while, I thought the hard part was over. The doubt, the laughter, the aching loneliness of building something no one believed in. But no one tells you what comes after the applause, when the stakes get higher, the numbers bigger, and the problems more expensive. Like the time I ran out of packaging 2 days before a 500 meal order. Or when one of my freezers failed overnight and I lost $4,000 in prepped food. Or when my driver ghosted me mid-route because his cousin had a flat tire halfway across the city. The cracks weren't just in logistics. They were in me. I hadn't taken a real day off in 10 months. My hands were constantly dry from gloves, bleach, and endless rounds of washing. I hadn't seen the inside of a gym, a movie theater, or my own dreams in months. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore, just that people expected more, and I couldn't afford to say no. Then came Leo. Leo was the friend of a friend, introduced at a networking event I didn't want to attend. Polished. Charismatic. The kind of guy who made entrepreneur sound like a designer cologne. You're sitting on a gold mine, he told me, sipping his whiskey like he owned the bar. But you're thinking too small. I didn't like him. Which probably meant he was right. Leo offered capital. A full production facility. Distribution deals. Branding experts. I'll take your homemade hustle, he said, and turn it into a lifestyle brand. He even had a slogan, real food, real fast, real you. I hated how catchy it was. You'd still be the face, he assured me. We just streamline. Centralize. Outsource prep to cheaper kitchens. Cut costs. Scale aggressively. It made sense. It also made my stomach turn. Because here's what he didn't understand. I like knowing every sauce was handmade, that every delivery passed through my system. That when someone said, this saved my week, I could believe it was because I'd actually done something. With Leo, it would be different. I'd go from chef to mascot, from builder to figurehead. But the money was obscene. His offer could triple my monthly revenue in 2 quarters. I could pay off my parents' mortgage. I could buy a real house, not just rent an overpriced apartment with 2 roommates and a temperamental sink. I told him I'd think about it. Then I made a mistake. I told Danny. She was my first real hire. My prep lead. My confidant. The one who stayed late when everyone else left, who used to say things like, this isn't a job, it's a cost. I told her about Leo, about the offer, about the factory kitchens and the scaling plan. She didn't say anything at first. Just stared at the meal she was plating, roasted salmon with sesame broccoli and soba noodles. Her favorite. You know what happens when we outsource? She finally said, voice flat. We become like everyone else. I know, I said. And I did. But she wasn't done. You think the people who followed you from day one did it because of pretty packaging? They followed you because it meant something. Because you showed them what real food, made by real hands, could look like. I hated how right she was. But I also hated how exhausted I was. How every week felt like walking a tightrope over a vat of debt and disappointment. Leo's offer felt like a parachute. A lifeline. So I told Danny I hadn't decided. That I'd let her know. She didn't show up the next day. Or the day after. I called. Texted. Emailed. Nothing. She was gone. And just like that, something broke. Not in the kitchen. In me. I kept working, of course. Orders still had to go out. But the food didn't taste the same. It looked right. But it didn't feel right. Because what no one tells you is that you can win and still feel like you're losing something important. The final straw came 2 weeks later. Mark showed up. In person. He came by the facility unannounced, flashing that same grin he'd worn the day he made that joke about my rice. Dude, he said, arms out like he expected a hug. Place looks legit. Figured it's time we caught up. I stared at him, deadpan. Caught up to what? The last time we spoke you sent me a meme about failure. He laughed, as if time had erased context. Come on, man. Water under the bridge. I brought coffee. He did. A tray of it. Like peace offerings from a man who didn't know what peace tasted like. I heard you might be expanding, he said. I scanning the space. Leo told me. Said he might bring me on for branding. Said you guys were close. Something twisted in my gut. Leo was already building his team. Without my answer. I didn't say anything. I just looked at Mark. Really looked at him. All those years, he never once said, I'm sorry I doubted you. He still hadn't. And now he wanted in. Just like that. That night, I sat in my car outside the facility, hands gripping the wheel like it might ground me. I thought about Danny. About my first viral video. About the people who'd eaten my meals and felt, if only for 5 minutes, cared for. Then I thought about Leo's factory kitchen. The branding. The offer. And I realized something bitter and true. If I took Leo's deal, I'd be rich. But I'd also be someone else's product. And I hadn't come this far to become a logo. I didn't sleep the night before I met with Leo. Not because I was nervous. Not exactly. It was more like grief. The kind of restlessness that comes when you know something's about to die, maybe a dream, maybe a version of yourself. His office was in one of those glass towers downtown where everything smells like eucalyptus and capitalism. I wore the only blazer I owned. He wore confidence like a tailored suit. Glad you came, he said, motioning to the seat across from him like he hadn't already prepared the contract. You made the right call. I didn't say anything. Just looked at the papers in front of me, neatly typed, perfectly formatted, full of numbers that made my stomach twist. Equity split. Buyout options. Licensing rights. Non-compete clauses. Every paragraph whispered, take the money. Let go. Be safe. He started talking, fast and smooth. About scaling. About franchises. About turning my little business into the next Sweet Green, the next HelloFresh. About IPO potential. About legacy. I nodded like I was listening. But I wasn't. I was thinking about Danny. About her hands moving fast over a prep table, slicing carrots like they owed her money. I was thinking about the first client who ever messaged me to say thank you, that my meals helped her eat again after losing her husband. I was thinking about how it all started, in a cramped kitchen, while my parents rolled their eyes and my friends laughed behind their phones. Leo pushed the pen toward me. All you have to do, he said, is sign. And you'll never have to worry again. I picked up the pen, held it, then set it down. No. His smile faltered. I'm not signing, I said. He leaned back, confused. You're joking. I'm not. You realize how rare this opportunity is? I do. You're walking away from millions. From security. From freedom. I looked him dead in the eye. I'm walking away from you. He laughed, but there was no warmth in it. You think you can scale this on heart alone? You'll burn out. Probably, I said, but at least it'll still be mine. I stood up. The chair scraped back hard against the tile. He didn't try to stop me. The elevator ride down felt like stepping out of a trap disguised as a throne. That night, I went back to the kitchen. No press release. No announcement. Just me, a playlist I'd overplayed 100 times, and the smell of roasted garlic thick in the air. And then, right as I was finishing prep, Danny walked in. No warning. No apology. Just an apron in her hand and tired eyes that said more than words could. I was mad, she said. But I shouldn't have left like that. I nodded. I was scared. But I didn't sell it. I know, she said. I saw the post. I blinked. What post? She pulled out her phone. There it was. A customer I barely remembered had written a long post on Reddit, raving about my meals, the quality, the personal touches, the story behind the brand. It had gone viral. Again. We've got 1,200 new followers, Danny said. And 300 new orders in the last 6 hours. I sat down. Hard. And laughed. Not the hollow, bitter kind I'd grown used to. A real one. Loud. Stupid. Joyful. Because somehow, without signing anything, without selling out or giving in, I'd still won. Not by becoming big, but by staying me. The next few months were a blur. We expanded, but on our own terms. I hired another prep lead. Got better logistics. Partnered with local farms. We streamlined, but we didn't sell our soul. The brand grew, slowly and stubbornly. No factories. No shortcuts. Just food made with hands and heart. And my parents? They came around. One night, I invited them for dinner, just the three of us. I made their favorites, lemon herb chicken for Dad, roasted squash soup for Mom. No presentation. No labels. Just plates, laughter, and something like forgiveness simmering quietly between us. At the end, my dad looked up and said, I still don't fully understand what you do, but I'm glad you didn't listen to us. Neither was I. As for Mark, he called again. Wanted to grab lunch. Said he had ideas. I told him I was busy. Indefinitely. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. When you build something from nothing, from ridicule and rejection, from sleepless nights and shaky hands, it's not just a business. It's a mirror. And you have to live with the reflection. Mine wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And I could look it in the eye every single day and say, we did it. Without them. Despite them. For us. The meals still go out. The orders still come in. Some days, I still burn the rice. But every single day, I wake up knowing that the life I have now is carved from disbelief and stubborn hope. They laughed. And I listened. Not to them. To the silence afterward. And in that silence, I built something they'll never take from me.